You do not want to mess around with these things. He talks about money. Obviously, he's talking about power. He talks about women. He talks about all sorts of things like having mentors and listening to your mentors. Everything that you could think of as a guy, he's addressing to his son in this book. Hey there, and welcome to Making Men Academy. My name is Isaiah Keene, and today I want to talk about something that I know I personally struggle with a lot, and so I think it's something that other people struggle with too. Today we are talking about patience. Patience is something that I know everyone struggles with from time to time, and I believe that us as men especially can struggle with patience because we're men. And actually in the Bible, Solomon talks about this. He writes the book of Proverbs to his son regarding all of the things that he has learned after he's been blessed with wisdom by God. And he's teaching his son what to do, what not to do. He's warning his son and giving his son wisdom and advice throughout this book. That's the entirety of the book. And he starts it off with the pursuit of wisdom. But in Proverbs 16, he really goes in and starts talking about the motives of us as human beings versus God and how we think about ourselves, and he talks about patience. And I think it's so interesting that he brings these two things up here because first he starts talking about, he begins in Proverbs 16, which is what we're reading right now, verses 2 to 3. So the very beginning, he says, "A person's ways seem pure to them, but the Lord examines their motives. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." He starts right out the gate talking about everything we do seems just and seems like it's right to us. And he continues this theme throughout. And he's dueling. There's this duality between what we think is right and the patience that we need to have to follow God and to pursue God instead of just what we think. And I know I get so caught up in just what I believe I should be doing, and I'll even end up getting grumpy at other people when they interrupt me from doing that thing because I want to be doing what I'm working on. I want to be doing what I'm doing. And instead, I start getting laser focused and I stop being flexible and I stop being available. And I just end up becoming detached and I'm not paying attention to the people around me that matter anymore. I'm focusing on myself because I think that what I'm doing is so important right now. And yeah, it is important, but it's not as important as other people. And Jesus calls us, the Bible and God and Jesus call us in Matthew, I believe. Jesus says, to sum up all of the law and the prophets is to say, love your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so if I'm really focusing on my things, I'm not doing what he talks about, committing my plans to the Lord. And instead, I'm being selfish and focusing on myself. And I'm being hasty and I'm being arrogant instead of having the patience to be able to detach and go help those people. That's just one example though, because we can do all sorts of things and it can still be wrong, even if we're trying to do it in the right way. If we're doing the right thing, but doing it with the wrong reasons and wrong motives, that's not good. God says, do everything without complaining and arguing, so that you may be pure and holy and blameless children of God. And that's really important for us because, come on guys, we get so focused on what we're trying to do right now, what we're supposed to be doing, what we think we're supposed to be doing, that we end up neglecting everything else. Have you ever heard I don't need to tell you, you know what it's like to try and multitask or to get too stressed out about something because you're trying to have this dual thing of multiple things going on at one time. It's really challenging, right? And so we need to really focus though and step back and say, look, let's go down to Proverbs 16:32 and read what it says. Better to be patient than powerful. Better to have self-control than conquer a city. Better to be patient than powerful. That really kind of drives a nail through my chest. Oh my goodness, because that seems like that's something that I need and something that I need to have so much is that power and to be powerful, when really I'm neglecting my patience and I'm neglecting being patient. And so this stuck out to me because it's been something that I've been struggling with a lot more recently, and especially as I work to grow my YouTube channel and as I work on the different things that I'm working with. I have multiple business endeavors that I'm working on, but God says better it is to be patient than to be powerful. And it's better to be humble and have self-control than conquer a city. That's amazing to me because we need to have that as men. And when you look at different men throughout history, the differences in these men is what they're doing. We have to have this masculine ability and duality and this beautiful, amazing thing that we as men get to have, that's completely masculine. Women don't do this in the same way that we do, where we are so powerful as men, but we are also so patient and protecting and loving. And that's really what Jesus did. He was the perfect model of this. I believe that he was an absolute leader, and that he was everything we need to be focusing on as leaders and as men, because he set this tone perfectly. He was strong when he needed to be strong, and he was very gentle, and he was very meek, and he was very understanding, and he would lower himself when he needed to be able to reach and connect people to him, and when he needed to connect to people, I should say. And you can see the way that that blessed the people who he was connecting with. He was coming down to their level, the Son of God, and he was still like interacting with these people and like washing their feet at the end of his life. He washes the disciples' feet at the end, at the Last Supper. But then you contrast that to Matthew 15, where he's just nailing the Pharisees, and he's talking about, you guys are a brood of vipers. You are the worst people ever. You are such hypocrites and such liars. It's like, it blows my mind, because it's so crazy that he can be so like this, and it's amazing. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So we need to remember that we need to have this patience over our power, and we need to be able to steward our power properly. Otherwise, like he says, it's better to have self-control than conquer a city. What do you think Solomon is talking about here? He obviously, okay, context. If you want context, go listen to some of my last episodes, and I'll link which ones in the description. I'll tell you, listen to these episodes for more on Solomon. But basically, he is this massive, amazing Jewish leader. His father was David, and out of all of David's kids, Solomon was like the only one to actually have his head screwed on straight. And he was blessed, and he was even part of a covenant God made with David. David wanted to build the temple of God, build a temple for God inside of Jerusalem and inside of Israel. And God was like, no, it's not your time. You're too old, man. You can't do that. Your son is going to do that. And he will be the one to erect a temple to the Lord. And Solomon did. And it took him a long, long time. And he got amazing wealth, and he had power. He had wealth, he had power, he had influence, and he had such an amazing reputation. And he just, all of Israel lived in this blessedness during his reign. Everything was like plated with gold. It was amazing. And here he is saying that it's better to be patient than powerful. This guy, one of the most powerful people in his time. And he's saying that it's better to have self-control than conquer a city. And this is a recurring theme all throughout the book of Proverbs. He's talking to his son and he's like, dude, make sure your head is on straight. You do not want to mess around with these things. He talks about all sorts of things. He talks about money. Obviously, he's talking about power. He talks about women. He talks about all sorts of things, like having mentors and listening to your mentors. Everything that you could think of as a guy, he's addressing to his son in this book. So it's a beautiful book. You need to go and read it. I highly, highly recommend it. I read it and I'm like, wow. And so we need to be remembering to have this patience over our power. And what that really means and what that really looks like is that we are thinking and then using, right? We need to use our heads more than our muscles. And we need to use our head controls our muscles, obviously, right? We have a brain, and the brain tells our muscles what we need to be doing, like whether we're doing push-ups or whether we're doing a run, whether we could be like dads, like cradling a baby, right? But our muscles are doing something. We need to be stewarding where we're putting our muscles. If you think about abusive fathers, they're not putting their brawn with their brain. They're not using their brain. They're not having patience. They're not having self-control. They're just exerting physical power out of anger and out of wrath. They're conquering the city, or so they think. But what are they really doing? Exactly. So we need to have the patience and the mental abilities. He talks about that in here too. I mean, wisdom, right? he starts the entire book prefaced, "Blessed is the one," and I'm paraphrasing here, but he's saying like, blessed is the one who chases wisdom and who seeks after wisdom and who seeks after God. And his father David talked about, Lord, it is a delight to live in your law, and I delight to follow your law. And so you see this recurring theme of like chasing the Lord and applying our brains, using our brains. We're smart. God gave us brains, so we need to use them. So it is better to be patient than powerful, and it is better to have self-control than conquer a city. So think about this before we go. Where are you putting power where maybe you should be applying patience first? I know for me, sometimes first thing when I wake up, I need to be applying patience instead of power. I know throughout the day, as I'm getting interrupted with work, I need to be applying patience instead of power. One of my favorite prayers is just to real quick stop and say, when I know I'm in one of these situations, Lord, give me patience and give me peace, please. And that's such a calming, it's so calming when we ask God to give us something. And I ask, Lord, in your name, I ask that you would give me this, because you say that we can ask in your name, in your authority. Jesus said, I will go back and be with my Father, and you'll be able to ask for things in my name where you couldn't have asked in my name before, because I wasn't here before. But now I've come and I'm here, and then I'm going to die. I won't be with you anymore, and I'll go back to heaven, and you'll have the Holy Spirit in you, and I'll be there advocating for you with my Father. Try that prayer out next time. Just thinking like, Lord, I need some peace and I need some patience right now. I ask that you would give that to me in this moment and remind me to be slow, right? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not self-seeking. Love is not dishonoring. Love doesn't keep records of wrong. We need to be ultimately totally forgiving of the people around us and of the situations around us. And we need to remember that we're probably not necessarily in the wrong, but we need to assess, where are we right now in our heads and in our hearts? And could we be more gentle in this situation instead of getting overwhelmed and frustrated? And I mean, it can go so many ways for so many interactions and different things. So I hope this finds you well, and I will see you in the next episode.